Welcome everyone to the episode of the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. And as we are around Valentine's Day, who better would you love to spend time with than the Professor and, of course, the 13th Crusader? There you go.
Yo.
Yo,
What's up, Johnny?
what's up? All right, okay, so depending on who you're shouting for in the Super Bowl, you'll either be happy or you're not happy. We're recording this prior to the Super Bowl, so we have no idea who's won. Although we do know that the Giants, the Patriots, and the Dolphins have no chance of winning it this year. What can I say? On that note, we shall jump straight into the books for our second Tainted Love.
Does this become an annual show?
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be. Yeah, we could do Tainted Love. Whoa, Tainted Love. That's fine. I'll do it. I don't mind. Let's keep this going. And of course, we're talking about loves. And for all the grief that you two give me for picking back books, I can't believe we have to start with yet another Doctor Doom book. So, oh my God. Anyway, this is Marvel Superheroes number 20 from May 1969. Really hard to find on eBay in the UK. I did find one for £147, but the postage was stupidly priced. In the States, this is £475 for a low grade, all the way up to £3,300. Sorry, $3,300, I should say. So it's written by Larry Lieber and with Roy Thomas. Art by Larry Lieber and Frank Goacola, which is like Coca-Cola but different. Ink, Vince Coletta, and colours by Sam Rosen. And because it's a Doctor Doom book, and because of his little avatar, guess who picked this?
I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it, bud.
All right, so 13th, take it away. What's so special about this book?
Well, it's the first solo Doom story, which is why the value is so high, and it is difficult to find. I did manage to find a copy of this a couple of years ago, and
How much did you pay for it?
I don't remember. I'll have to go back through my notes to be honest, but it wasn't that cheap. I did not get a super low grade copy either.
Unlike the one we're showing here, because let's get our CGC heads on this. Check it out. There's some spine damage to here where my little cursor is. And of course, you have that lovely price ticket stuck in the middle of the M. Fantastic. Good work.
Yeah. So at the time I bought this, I was not really aware that this was the first solo Doom story, only because he had made so many appearances prior to this. But it actually is. And it's one of the things with this particular title with Marvel Superheroes that makes it cool. It doesn't matter who it is. You know, it could be a solo story. It could be reprints. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck, or a quarter back then. And you got Doom on the cover. So right away, they didn't waste any time telling you what this was going to be about. What I like that it was an original story for this issue. What makes this book interesting for me, at least, despite what the machine says, is the fact that you get a nice glimpse into Doom's past. So by this point, if you don't know who Doctor Doom is, you're going to learn that obviously his arch enemies are the Fantastic Four. And he's tired of losing to them constantly despite his high intellect and capacity for evil. And he always wants to rule the world, just like the Tears for Fears song. Everybody wants to rule the world. So you get another villain here, Diablo. He comes in. I never liked this character, Diablo, at all. The second I saw him, I'm like, why do I remember this guy? He had been around for a little bit, but he's a master alchemist and whatnot. And I'm like, this guy, are you in the right line of work, man? Like, you would have been an awesome bartender. You know what I'm saying?
Mixologist.
Yeah, exactly. But this issue has got to be the only story where I actually do like Diablo. And I'll go on record with that, because I will never say that on any other issues he's in. And the reason why I like this particular story is because Diablo brings somebody from Doom's past in the person of Valeria. And Valeria is someone from Doom's childhood. You get to meet Valeria when they were younger. They obviously had feelings for each other. But what does Doom love more than anything else? Is
Pa-
himself,
power. Oil
power,
change.
the world. His ambition is unparalleled. And unfortunately, the person that gets kicked to the curb in this is Valeria. But you fast forward now to this situation with Diablo, and you see that he's trying to manipulate Doom to get him to team up with him and whatnot. But Doom's at a crossroads, and to this point, you don't see Doom like that too often, if at all,
Mm,
right? It's always about I'm gonna kill you. It's always about I'm gonna conquer you. It's always about bragging how much smarter I am than you.
mhm,
It's bragging about how I can think of every possibility before you could even think of it. That's Doctor Doom. He's full of
mm,
himself, talks about himself in the third person constantly, but this gave him pause.
mm.
This woman gave him pause.
Is that because she looks like Satana?
Well, um, I'll get to that in a second. But ultimately Doom has a choice. He could either, join forces with Diablo or say, you know what, forget about all of you people. I don't care. But Doom is Doom. He manipulates Diablo and basically banishes him into the far distant future. I'll say something about that in a minute as well. But finally, he frees Valeria from the clutches of Diablo, and she knows who Doom is, who Doom is at
Mm,
this point, and she never stopped loving him. And it wasn't until he saw her that all that resurfaced, and he kind of stopped.
mm,
But when she's challenging him to say, I don't like what you've become. Why don't you try something different? You could still rule the country. Just stop being an idiot, in
mm,
other words. But his ambitions were too high, and he preferred to be alone rather than to be with her, which is a shame because what I loved about this again is that they put the villain in the spotlight. It is Doctor Doom, one of the more recognizable villains in the Marvel universe to this point. You get treated with the FF, although they're avatars and whatnot. That's great. You get Diablo if you were familiar with him, but this gets very personal for Doctor Doom. Now, the artwork in here I found to be it did the job. I think that the art excelled whenever it came to drawing Valeria. I thought it was pretty sharp. It was tight. It was great
mhm,
line work. They really did a good job of defining her. Even the young Doctor Doom, it's like if you had never seen what he looked like underneath the armor, now you get to see what he looked like as a kid and then a young adult. Um,
mm,
you get to see Doom super confused on what to do. You even get to see him fight with himself. Like even if I succumb to wanting to be with her and everything like that, I'm a freak. He takes his
mm,
faceplate off, and then he's like reminded of why he's alone, that no one's ever gonna like me anyways, and I'm gonna continue with my plan and whatnot. So has a lot of emotion swirling around for Doom. Now, I'll mention 2 points quickly here. That
mhm,
for Diablo, the far distant future, if you ever wondered how the hell he ever got out of that, you can blame the Inhumans. You could blame Lockjaw. Lockjaw transported Crystal there, and somehow that's how Diablo got out of there. And if you think that this is the first and last appearance of Valeria, you will be wrong. If you're ever interested in Valeria, you could check out Hulk 144, where she's back on the scene with Doom, but unwillingly. He went after her
mm,
and tried to convince her that he was quote unquote doing things for the right reason for the sake of Latveria. So the adventure doesn't stop here for Valeria, if anyone's ever curious. But and then you get the extra treats with this issue with old school Submariner, old school Jim Hammond Human Torch, and of course Captain America. The golden age Marvel heroes. So those are the bonus features in here. But I do like this book a lot. It is one of my favorite Doctor Doom stories, and when I first read it, I was kind of captivated by how the writers Roy Thomas and Larry Lieber presented Doctor Doom. It's still villainous, still evil, it's true to his nature, but here's a new wrinkle in there. What will Doom do when he's faced with love? And your
What
answer
will
is there.
what will Doom do? Quick question though, right? Just quick question before I jump across to Professor. They said this is Doom's first solo book. By my reckoning, there's a whole host of people in this book, including the Fantastic Four.
Mhm.
How's that a solo book?
Well, what that means is that he's the lead of the story.
Oh,
and
you could argue.
the Fantastic Four that's in this book are not really the Fantastic Four.
Correct. They're avatars.
Ah, there you go. See, okay, there you go. That answers my question. Well done. So, Larry Lieber has a famous brother, does he not, Professor?
Stan the Man.
Stan the Man Lee.
Stan
Excellent.
Lieber was actually his actual name. So,
There you go.
and Larry is still with us.
Hmm.
We're
Cool.
knocking on wood right now. Please, Larry, still be with us.
Let me just check Wikipedia.
Well, this pod's not coming out till next week, so
Yeah, we got time. We got time.
Whoa. No, sorry.
All right.
well, Larry did a lot of ghost work for Stan in the early days of Marvel. Of course, not nearly enough credit that he gets, and he ended up running the UK division of Marvel.
Didn't he also
for
work on the
Stan.
Spider-Man news strips?
I believe he might. Yeah, did he? I can't remember actually.
I thought Stan Lee was on the newspaper.
Stan did the news strips.
But
That
didn't he
was-
do the artwork?
I thought John Romita.
No,
did
John
them.
Romita did the
John
artwork
Romita,
for the
yeah.
most part. Yeah.
Check us out. It's like the professor. The professor and I are separate people. Just so you know. All right. Okay.
Yeah, well.
All right, Professor. What do you think of this Doom solo book?
Well, this is almost like the classic backstory for Doom, right? I mean, this is kind of the first time that you see Valeria, right? This is her first appearance, and then to see a lot of where you realize that his mother was a gypsy sorceress, if you want to call her that. So I think this is the first time they kind of go down that road, and that has a lot of legs to that story where he trains himself to become a sorcerer, which is kind of like one of those angles that they use for Doctor Doom that I think is pretty cool. Diablo, you're right. I agree with 13. He is such a crappy villain, but he does make sense here. And I think that they should have left him at the end of time there, because I kind of thought that as an alchemist, he might have been able to do something at the end of time and maybe turn it into something, maybe bring back life,
Terraform the earth.
Yeah, but for as far as this story goes, and like to tie it into almost the Tainted Love, and I kind of think that the reason that we were picking this was because of the love Dr. Doom had for his mom, almost, right? Like that was kind of almost like a double-edged sword with the obsession he had with his mom, who, I mean, they tell you right in here, she died when he was very little, so he has no memory really of her, but driven to eventually try to rescue her from Mephisto, right? Every year on an annual basis. The Valeria part of the story, and you didn't mention this, 13, but we know that Reed and Sue's daughter is named Valeria, and was, I believe, they named her for Doom's lover.
Really?
Because
Why?
because Sue had a problem with her pregnancy before Valeria was born. In fact, Sue had a miscarriage years earlier, and then in this time she was going to lose the baby again. But Dr. Doom actually saved the baby, and not only did he name her Valeria, but also is Valeria's godfather.
Oh man, it's like Twilight all over again.
Oh no!
It is kind of funny. I know this, and I know those storylines kind of go past the old timers time frame, but yeah, that it's interesting when you look back and you see all this stuff. So, yeah, I mean, this book is a classic and very, very hard to find. So,
Yep. Oh yeah, you don't got to tell me that.
yeah.
But it's under section M in one box of long boxes in 13th comic
Well,
cupboard.
I think we mentioned this on the last podcast about how Marvel superheroes and Marvel Spotlight and all this stuff, especially around this time frame, 1968, 19 to 1973 or 4, they were throwing a lot of crap at the wall. And a lot of these characters, I think there's an ad at the end of this book for Starhawk, who is not the Starhawk from Guardians of the Galaxy, or doesn't look anything like him. But I thought that was interesting. Like, next issue, we get Starhawk, and I was like, really? Because I've never read that. I've never read that book. I've never seen it anywhere. But interesting stuff.
This definitely goes on record as one of those rare villain spotlight books for its time.
Yes. And the backup stories in here where there's a backup Submariner story that is new. But then the three backups, the Human Torch, Captain America, and other Submariner story, is from when they relaunched in the 50s with Atlas Comics. And those three are really interesting reads. If you look at the second page of the Human Torch story, or the third page, where they show him having a clash with Hitler, where you realize that the Human Torch actually killed Hitler. And as he's dying, he says, "Tell everybody that I committed suicide."
Oh man!
There's it's earlier in the story. Yeah, right there. You missed it. It was that other page, right? The middle left.
Oh, there you go, middle left.
Tell them I committed suicide. I was like, oh my goodness.
There you go. See if you can see that there.
So that was from the 1950s.
Oh my god.
You know what I find funny too is like the actual cover itself, the corner box. How many people out there do you think saw that and said, "Wait, Dr. Doom's with the Invaders now"?
Right.
That's a good shout.
Right.
Good shout.
So those stories at the end were, I think, I don't know how much of the 50s Atlas books Marvel ever reprinted. I know they reprinted a bunch of Golden Age stuff, but I don't know how much of that 1950s revivals that ever saw the light of day. Again.
Yeah, because the 50s, I think they retconned the 50s stuff as being a different Captain America, didn't they?
Right. Well, that's what they even explained that. They were like, this is so you guys get 2 revivals for the price of 1.
Hey, remember too, at this time, reprinting these stories were beneficial to Marvel because if you were a kid, first those old comic books were treated like periodicals and dumped wherever they landed.
Yeah.
But if this is your way to get exposed to what they did before, still keep the history sort of intact. Plus, who wouldn't want to read Captain America, the Human Torch, and Submariner? So, and then you throw in Doom here, who was becoming ever more popular with each passing panel.
Well, this is also late 60s, early 70s. They were reprinting Silver Age Spidey, Silver Age Fantastic Four, Silver Age Avengers. They were reprinting all of those in their own reprint books, like Marvel Triple Action and other books that I can't quite.
It's amazing. I mean, this came out in '69, and they're doing reprints around that time for the Silver Age, as you say, Spidey books. But Spidey's only been around since the '62, so it's not like there's a huge amount of dearth of material there.
It's almost like a promo, piece. Like if you didn't catch it this time, you will get it. We'll get you now.
Well, even the annuals that they were reprinting, they were printing had reprints in the back. So
you imagine that, can't you? It's like you might have ignored us the first time and the second time, but god damn it, we're going to reprint this book till you buy the damn thing.
So I have a question before we move on. When you were little and buying comics for the first time, would you get mad when they'd reprint the Amazing Spider-Man 15 for the 15th time?
Over here over here we had a Spider-Man weekly comic. I've shown you the Star Wars weekly comic. There used to be a Spider-Man one very similar to that, and on the odd occasions you managed to find like an American comic book. I think I had a couple of Amazing Spider-Mans, and the reprint book came out, and my mum bought it for us and brought it home, and there you go, there's a present for you. And I kicked off because it was the story where Hydro Man and Sandman combine.
Yeah.
I must have seen that story like 4 different times in the space of a year. I was like, why is they still telling me this story? I've got it already. I was like, oh.
I was okay with the first 13 reprints, but after that, that's when I lost my cool.
So, my thoughts on this book before we jump across. I'll say this: I'm pleased that I know that Jack Kirby fell out with Marvel, right?
But after this,
yeah. Well, here's the thing: it's a good thing that when he did, they had some carbon copy artists ready to go there, because
I was going to mention that
this art in this book has taken the Kirby model and just copied it. There is hardly any sort of, wow, that looks really great, because we're in the process of it all being, oh, look at that. Well, there we're good. Hang on 2 seconds. Let me sort this out for us.
Would you be surprised if it said Kirby did the layouts?
No, I would not be surprised at all. But it's really disappointing when I think about how companies used to do this all the time, and even now Marvel don't exactly stick to their own guns. They've got artists imitating other artists, and it really kind of bugs me a little bit. Does it make Marvel stand out from DC? Yeah, it does. But if I'm paying money, even if it is my 25 cents, then you know what? If you tell me it looks like Jack Kirby, can I have Jack Kirby, please? Instead of some.
Well, the only places where it doesn't look like Kirby is really Valeria. As I said earlier, the line art there is much more different, and that's where she stands out in the whole story.
Kind of.
Every panel with Diablo in it looks like Kirby did it.
Exactly, like almost to the T.
I mean, look at this face down here.
Yep.
Right.
Come on. That could be Wyatt Wingfoot for all we know. Yeah.
There's a reproduction of that John Byrne did back in the 80s that looks, panel for panel was a swipe, and it was just he just redid the art. It would, but not that it was bad, but
I don't know. It just threw me, because when I did my notes, I put down the creators, and then I started looking at the book. I'm like, it's Jack Kirby. It's Jack Kirby. Now, I know Jack Kirby's an absolute god and everyone loves his art. I love his art. His writing's a different story altogether. But I know comics at least Marvel stage at this time, they were still quite fledgling. They'd only been around from this Silver Age for a few years. So you either had only 2, maybe 3 different artists going on at this time. You had Kirby, Ditko, and you had Romita. Maybe with some Don Heck thrown in for good measure every now and again. That was it. That was all you had. That's all she wrote. And if you were trying to break in and be an artist, you had to look like one of those. That kind of like spoiled it for me a little bit. Story-wise, I feel sorry for Dr. Doom, because, I mean, hey, man, he's got some problems. He's got tainted loves all over the place. An almost incestuous obsession with his mother. And now he's squeezed from when he was a kid. Doesn't want to know him. Oh, poor bloke. He's got bad.
Does that double page spread? That's Kirby. Look at the teeth on Diablo. Look at it. It's nuts.
Yeah, it is. It's like, and look at the fingers here. That's got to be Ditko, right?
Yep.
A little bit of Ditko there. No. So I mean, for a read, if you like your Doctor Doom, it's a good read for Doctor Doom fans. A lot of history in there. I like Doctor Doom because I think he's one of those classic villains that he's doing something bad, but for the right reason. Because all he wants to do is look after Latveria, doesn't he? He doesn't particularly want to destroy the world every now and again, but fair enough. He's got a hit on with with the Fantastic Four, but hey ho. Generally speaking, he's only doing it for the betterment of his country, isn't he? So, no, an interesting choice. Well done. Good start. We will take a quick break here before we move on to the next book. What have we not had for a while? Tell you what we haven't had. We haven't had a bit of a crisis. Here we go. There you go, Crisis and Toyverse. Excellent show. Go check it out if you like your figures and whatnot. I'm sure if you ask Nicely 13th, I'm sure he'll do a Doctor Doom figure review for you.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he would.
Yeah.
I can supply the voice if needed, Bobo.
All right. Oh, no, come on then. Let's hear it.
No, we'll save it for Bobo's show.
All right. Okay, fine. Fine, be like that. Okay, so for all the grief, I'm not going to sound like a broken record. For all the grief that I get from you two for picking a Batman book, it's yet another Avengers book. Here we go.
Giant-sized Avengers at that.
Even more Avengers than we had before. Oh my god! All right, so this is Giant-sized Avengers number 4 from May 1975. On eBay, you can get this for around £35. Although its grade is a little bit dodgy. On Go Collect, you can have this from a grade 6 at $18, all the way up to 9.6 for $450. Just thought that would have gone up with the recent One Division show, but hey ho. It's Avengers. It can only mean it's one thing. It's the Professor's choice. Professor, take it away.
It is my choice. I want to do a couple of shout outs before I start actually reviewing the book. First,
I haven't done credits.
I think, well, you want to do the credits?
I'll run the credits quickly. Written by Steve Englehart, who I know you absolutely love. Art Don Heck, who I've already mentioned. Inks John Tartag. Letters by C. Jeter. Colors by Al Goldberg. There you go. Oof. Thank you.
So I just want to shout out how amazing it is to have a Norse god standing at a Catholic wedding ceremony on the cover.
Holding his hammer, nonetheless.
And he's like in that kind of like.
Which one's Catholic?
I don't know. That's the thing, right?
I mean, she's gypsy, right?
She's a gypsy.
Mantis, he's a machine who has no religion one way or the other. Mantis is an ex-prostitute.
So I mean, the wedding ceremony is weird, right? I mean, just
and the mom was there too.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is I wanted to thank Steve Englehart for shattering the dreams and hopes of all prepubescent teenager boys everywhere that used to read comic books, because the two most eligible bachelorettes in Avengers history, one marries a robot, the other one marries a tree. So what are you going to do?
Just remember, one marries a machine.
They were ahead of their time. You know, I mean, she married a sex robot, and
Yes. Woo! That would be a Tainted Love.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
She can get Mantis can get wood whenever she wants.
Exactly. Without any bark.
Can we not just leave the jokes?
No, this is a firmly rooted problem machine.
Oh, good God. I think we should branch out into something else.
Thank you, Mr. Englehart.
We should see. Yes, Mr. Englehart. The other thing that I wanted to mention too about these books is, so the giant size books, and there were a ton of them in the early 70s or mid 70s because this came out in 1975. This was an answer to DC's 100-page Giants that were coming out at the time. And what they were trying to do is actually see how much story they could put out with the reprints too, right? There's a reprint at the end of this book too, from Tales to Astonish. So they wanted to charge more, so they charged 50 whole cents for these books. So it was a lower, I believe, price point than the 100-page Giants that were coming out from DC, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you were getting arguably more original stories because those 100-page Giants that were coming out from DC were heavy reprinted, right? So this was actually a failed experiment. What they ended up doing shortly after this, because I think there's 2 more issues, I think, of Giant Size Avengers after this, but they end up just raising the prices on the line, going back to the regular page count in the book, and calling it a day.
So which came first, Giant Size Avengers or Giant Size X-Men #1?
Giant Size X-Men #1, actually, I believe, came out the same month this did.
All right, okay.
Giant Size #4. And I could be totally wrong, but that's what I believe. And there was only the one Giant Size X-Men, as opposed to there were 6 issues of Giant Size Avengers. So
According, this came out before Giant Size X-Men.
okay, so
Not by much.
I stand corrected. Yeah, not by much, because these were all coming out at the same time, around the same time. But the reason I wanted to shout out Steve Englehart was because Steve Englehart embraced this format, because these books were coming out in between regular issues of the Avengers. The other creative teams that between like Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, these giant-sized books were standalone stories exclusively. They weren't tied to the regular book. Steve Englehart used these giant-sized books as you needed to get this. This was an essential part of the story. And if you missed, like, let's say in between Avengers 134 and 135, you needed to get Giant Size Avengers #3. And then you needed to get Giant Size Avengers #4 in between 136 and 137, right?
So this is like the current version of Marvel when they do an issue, then the next issue is same issue number 0.1.
Exactly. So this was, I think, Steve Englehart's genius as far as being able to have this huge canvas to tell a bigger story. And this was the biggest story in the Avengers in the 70s, in my opinion, in the mid 70s, because you had this is the end of the Celestial Madonna storyline, the Mantis with the reconstituted corpse of Swordsman, in Virgo, who is the father of Mantis, but they tied in Zodiac, the Zodiac cartel. And then in a totally separate storyline, you have Vision and Scarlet Witch taking on Dormammu, and wrapping everything up there. This is the only time Thor ever leads the Avengers, which, rereading these, I was like, I totally forgot Thor was the chairman for a while. But some of these things in the story, Moondragon coming into the Avengers, but she thinks she's the Celestial Madonna. Mantis never thought she was, and then to have her kind of, I think when she realizes that she's not the Celestial Madonna, I think this is when she kind of turns back into her more Madame McEvil days, if you remember. When she first appeared, she was Madame McEvil.
I always loved the design of Moondragon. Always, I thought it was super cool.
And no fishnets.
Never read a lot about her. So,
when Moondragon first appeared, we knew she was from Titan, but we didn't know she was from Earth too. And I don't think that we found that out until her second appearance, and that was when she moved over from Captain Marvel to Iron Man. And then she was in Iron Man for a little bit, but she was like a good guy the entire time. And then she became more arrogant and the more of the Moondragon that I think we all know in these pages of Avengers. And even after Englehart finishes off with her.
Wasn't she linked to Drax the Destroyer, the original one?
Drax the Destroyer is her father.
Correct. Yeah.
So, and they don't mention that in this at all.
Right.
they kind of retcon that and make her Drax's daughter. But this book has a lot of kind of wrapping up and tying up some of these long dangling plot threads. And throughout these giant size Avengers issues, King the Conqueror was the main bad guy, and he is back here in force and finally defeated. Well, and after these Kang issues, Kang doesn't reappear in any form in any comic for like the next 10 years. So Steve kind of drills Kang down another ground, and I think people might have Kanged out. So
never liked Kang.
10 years for us, but a few moments for Kang, of course.
Of course. Just a couple of shout outs here on Don Heck on the artwork was kind of a welcome back, because Don Heck had did the early runs of Avengers. But here, when they had moved so far past Don's style, it was almost jarring a little bit, because first of all, I don't think Don was as sharp as he had been. There's some of these panels that look really terrible.
I've got to say, you were talking about the art, and I'm looking at Iron Man picture that we're looking at right now. This top one here, I'm like, come on, really? Awful.
Yeah. There's a couple of panels of Vision further on in the book that I'm just like, can we try a little bit? But I think as far as I remember, when Don Heck was doing Avengers, back in the early 60s, they were doing the classic 9-panel layouts, right, per page.
Yeah.
And seeing like these elongated panels where Don has more room to showcase his art form, it's almost like he's stretching the characters out a little bit. That Vision panel looks like he widened them, like to make them fit the panel.
It's just all
Yeah. So it looks a little off to me, and maybe it was a rush job. I don't know. And he did have to draw 50 pages. So
Don Heck, I think he gets an awful lot of hate for art. I think you're absolutely right. I think back in the day, he's up there. He was solid, workmanlike, I suppose you could say. As comics evolved, as readers evolved, art styles changed, comics became more complex, and you end up, unfortunately, some people can't move with the time.
Well, and I think a lot of it was what we were alluding to with the Doctor Doom issue, where he looked like Kirby, right?
Yeah.
When you have these artists that have been around forever that are now forced to kind of change their style a little bit to try to pigeonhole into a Marvel type style, where I'm sure Don Heck was probably like, man, I helped originate this style.
Yeah.
And now I have to change the style to fit what Marvel's doing right now. And that I kind of think maybe hurt him a little bit. So
I always remember Al Saviak on Web of Spider-Man drawing a very classic Romita style Peter Parker and Mary Jane, and then when McFarlane came along and changed it all up, Saviak then started drawing in weird poses and all the elbows and knees and stuff. It just looked awful. I'd say just draw your stuff, man. Just draw. Just there's a reason why you've been in the industry for so long. But it's like, hey ho.
I talked to Ron Friends one time, and I gave him a compliment of, I was like, man, when you would draw on Thor, when you were on Thor, half the time I thought Kirby was doing the art, and he actually was like, thank you, because that's what I was trying to make it look like, Kirby. And I was like, I didn't know if he was going to be insulted by that.
Yeah.
But it turned out he was actually very complimented.
That's what we go for. I like Ron Friends on Star Wars. That's a while ago.
So I mean, as far as tying this into our Tainted Love storyline,
Yeah, a woman has a love for a machine. Gee, that's quite modern day now, isn't it? There's whole
Yeah.
stores sell love machines.
Well, we all know in the future what happens to Vision and Scarlet Witch. They were together forever, you know.
Yeah.
But then John Byrne decided it was time to smash that up, literally. And then, of course, Mantis and the tree guy, the
Yeah.
swordsman. Yeah, we all know what happened in Empire a couple of years ago. So,
It's
yeah,
it's so, and then Wonder went off the rocks, didn't she? It was very much like she's with almost Wonder Man at one point, and
hmm
all the sorts of crazy stuff. So I don't
yep,
know.
yep.
Just
So,
interesting names. You're the
but this
swordsman, but I want the Wonder Man. That's pretty interesting.
but these giant size issues are key to your Avengers collection. If you're collecting Avengers and you don't have these giant size issues, you're missing a lot of stories because I think one of the issue before this, or maybe it was giant size. Yeah, giant size 3 was the origin of Immortus and Kang, and that's where you found out that they were all the same person, Ruth Farah Ramatut
Mhm.
and Scarlet Centurion. They threw all the Steve Englehart just boiled them all into the same character and somehow made it work. So
Cool. There you go. So 13th Avengers fan.
Of course, I do own this issue as well. Um, what can I say? I'm here for the villains. Dormammu, I was excited for that. He made reference to his early appearances with Doctor Strange and how he was upset that Strange had to help him in a dark dimension against the mindless ones. Dormammu's sister Umar is in here. I think she's a character that uh, very underutilized at this time. Glad to have seen her here. You know, Division versus Dormammu. I don't think so, but hey, it works in here.
Yeah.
I think as far as the artwork is concerned, I think that's where you see traces of where Don Heck was either rushing or
mhm.
the line art was incomplete and then they inked over it. That's how I felt throughout the whole book.
I mean, look at that, Tony. Look at that picture there.
So,
The Vision. Awful,
you
awful,
know,
awful, awful.
I'm here for that portion of, with Dormammu, Scarlet Witch, Agatha Harkness. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Fans who are familiar with the show have read the books, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Audience members, Vision and Scarlet Witch and whatnot, and the history, West Coast Avengers. This
Mhm.
is it. This book should be in your collection for that. If you're an Immortus fan, well, congratulations. If you're an Immortus fan, if you want to hate on him, pick up Avengers 200. You'll learn a little bit of history on him there.
Oh no, we're not talking about Avengers 200. That is Tainted Love to the max. That bad boy.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
You know, to Bud's point, the history with Moondragon and Mantis is very convoluted. And with that convolution comes this script, which I had to fight to stay awake. I love Steve Englehart. I love
yeah.
everything that he's done, particularly on Batman. But I had to step away and come back and read this multiple times where I left off because there's just so much dialogue. There's
Yeah.
so much history. And I get what he's doing here. He's trying to set the record straight. You're dealing with a dead Avenger and swordsman. You know, he's part of the Kotati or whatever. I'm like, is that what she's calling it these days? Whatever. You know, you move on from that. And you're like, okay, what's the end game in this? The end
yeah.
game is that they have certain destinies and everything like that. I'm looking at it too from the perspective of it's a changing of the guard. You
Mm-hmm.
have the terrible the Titanic 3, which I like. I'm like, we only get a couple of panels with that. Crimson Dynamo, Titanium Man, Radioactive Man. I love those villains.
hmm
But everything comes full circle, I guess. Kang, I don't know. Like, I love Kang. He's one of my favorite Avengers villains. I just felt that he was I expected something different to happen with him in this story other than yet again trying to run away with the mantis. Ha ha ha, I'm gonna take her and she's gonna mate with me. Uh okay. So how's that gonna work out?
Well, see, I respectfully disagree with you on this one. I mean,
No,
obviously, sure, well, I'm going to
no,
anyway.
you
So,
can't.
oh yes, I can.
That is plain.
Yeah, I can. Right. So the way I look at this is, I've never understood and it's probably not disagreement because you can like who you like, and it's each to their own. I've never understood the fascination with Kang. It's like he's from the future. He knows what's going to happen, and you still lose. How sucky must you be for a villain?
I think
It's like,
later
it's like,
on,
it's
Kurt.
like, it's like coming back from the future, find out the Dolphins are never going to win the Super Bowl for me to put a bet on that the Dolphins are going to win the Super Bowl. It's bonehead.
Well,
Bonehead.
this issue actually proves your point because he comes back. He gets defeated like 4 times. That's why, like,
Mhm.
Thor actually shows up carrying 2 different Kangs. He's like, I keep coming back, and you keep beating me.
I like him from the perspective that he holds his own by himself, and then the attitude, the arrogance of Kang, and that's where the interest comes from. He's much better developed story wise later on.
Mhm.
I think Busiek did a much better job handling Kang than anyone did in the beginning. But back to this issue, a lot of weird things happen here. You're talking about celestial things happening here. A celestial Madonna. Maybe she was like a virgin. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe they went to La Isla Bonita afterwards. There you go, Madonna references there. But as far as like Moondragon, I felt like I had more questions coming out of this than I did answers for what I mentioned before, her ties to Drax the Destroyer. And then for Mantis, we all and you remember, Bud, when we spoke with Steve Englehart,
Right?
this was his project. This was his
Oh yeah,
main thing with the Mantis, and I
he
felt like,
loved Mantis. Yeah.
yeah, and by the end of this book, he finally got to send her off the way he wanted to, sort
Yep.
of, right? Because we all know later on he created Willow in DC, but on the Marvel side, this was it.
Well, this issue seemed like an information dump, didn't it?
Yeah,
God,
it
yeah.
was totally.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of key points in this story, but you've got to allude to 13's point. You've got to trawl through some stuff to get there. And I
Mhm.
agree that Englehart's a really good writer. Again, I agree with. I can't believe I'm saying this so often. I prefer his Batman stuff over this. Just there's just too much. It's too much to read, too much to take in, and the art doesn't look fantastic. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the fact that one just spends most of the time tied up somewhere or other, But hey ho,
Hmm.
that says more about me than it does Wonder, I suppose. But
This is one of those books that when you're researching Scarlet Vision and Scarlet Witch, it's like you treat this one like an encyclopedia. You can go in there and say, okay, let me read what happened.
yeah,
Same thing for Mantis. Same
Yep.
thing for Moondragon.
hmm
That's how I treated this book.
cool.
Yep. Because you get the tail end of Vision's origin story in this issue, plus
Right.
plus the resolution of Wanda and Vision and getting married at the end. And they did allude to the fact that Mantis was trying to break them up
Right.
in the regular Avengers run. And here, when she's put into the position where she becomes a celestial Madonna, they actually kind of forgive her for
Well,
being that rich in their relationship.
that's what Engelhart's vision for Mantis was. If it was very much a case of you've got all these guys, these superhero people, being all like macho and whatever, but then when a woman comes along, they're all gee shucks and they can't do anything. So
Mhm.
Mantis was the one that was going to go to the Avengers and mix things up and start, I'm not saying sleep around, but she's going to gain a lot of attention off people and she's going to bring a different level of, I suppose, conflict to the team.
This was a tough read, but it was also tough to see. Like, remember how I said before, it felt like line art that wasn't completed but inked over. The
Mhm.
coloring was also off on
Mhm.
several panels, and it bled over into places. So I really wonder, like, was this a project that we're like, okay, we're gonna go ahead with this? When is this due? What do you mean when it's due? It's
Yeah.
Mhm.
due on the normal time. Crap, we got 68. Is
I,
that what happened here?
Well,
I don't.
you remember what Steve told us a year ago when he was on one of our podcasts. Do you want it on time or do you want it to be good?
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
right,
and I don't know. Maybe if the story's too grand and like too big, too in massive scope, that it would take so many issues to get done. Because
right.
I mean, you've got the Kree Skrull War kicking around sooner or later, and that's an epic as well. You just gotta, you know, dial it down a little bit. But I enjoyed it for what it was.
Mm.
Not my favorite Avengers team. The art kind of threw me. 13's right about the color bleed. But if you love the characters, there is some really good stuff in there. But there you go. Very good. Very
Yeah.
good. Yay. All right. So next up is my choice. Oh my god! And I picked this purely for the tainted love aspect. I'm not gonna lie. There was nothing else about this book that was redeemable, but I was like,
I'm
I've got to
glad you
put.
said it, Johnny.
Honestly, this book is terrible. It's terrible. I've had this book twice. That's how bad this book is. I used to love this title. Somewhere along the line, it lost its way a little bit, and we're talking about Justice League Europe. This is issue 50. The final battle with Sonar. Let me get some notes on it. This is from May 1993. You can pick this up for £2.99 off eBay. If I was you, I'd look for the 99 pence section because, or you can email me at the show. I'm more than happy to send you my copy. Simple as. Written by Gerard Jones, art by Ron Randall, inks by Randy Elliott, letters by Willie Schubert, colors by Gene D'Angelo. Not only, I'll do this dead quick so everyone can have their say. Not only is this potentially one of the worst Power Girl costumes going on right now, but there you go. There's some Tainted Love for you. Whoa, whoa. Power Girl and Hal Jordan. Really? Really?
Well, and did you notice later on in the book that Aquaman leaves the team because it looks like he was upset over that relationship?
Well, back then, this is because everyone thought at this point Power Girl had been retconned to be Atlantean, not Kryptonian. So,
Or was she in a relationship with Aquaman?
no.
So why was Aquaman look like someone pissed in his cornflakes?
I don't know. Maybe that's just the way it was. Other than the god awful Power Girl costume, the introduction of Maya into the league. You've got Guy Gardner in his warrior phase. It is comic book by the numbers. At this point, the humor element of Justice League Europe and Justice League America had changed. Try to go for straight up superheroes doesn't necessarily work with this bunch. No, I picked it for page 11, and because it was Tainted Love, that's the only reason why I picked it. Yeah. What can I say? I was like, honestly, what I was thinking about it. I was like, what book has got a Tainted Love in it that I could talk about? And the only one I could think of, because I wanted to go for the humor, was that.
Oh, I thought you picked it because of Ralph and Sue, and
No.
Sonar kind of in the middle there. That's why.
No, it's this. It's this.
Interesting.
Because it's tainted. It's love that has been tainted.
So I would say get your scorecards out for this issue because every panel was like a different superhero. I was like, who the hell is even in this book? Yeah. I don't know who the team is. I didn't know who the team was until the end of the final panel when they introduced the new team.
Yeah.
And when like Aquaman's like, I'm leaving the team. I'm like, oh, you're part of the team? I didn't know who.
This came into fruition back on the J.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen Justice League book and try to keep up with that same level of humor. Unfortunately, it fails massively.
Well, so did the Justice League book, right? Like when J.M. DeMatteis left, and Giffen, that these books they tried to do the humor, and they try in this issue too. There's a couple of scenes where Wally and Crimson Fox and like supposedly her accent was fake, and they spent a long time trying to get her to talk without the accent, and I was like, oh my god, this is terrible. And the other thing, the other thing that was cringy, is we kind of all know what Gerard Jones, happened to him in real life. Right. There's a scene in here with Maya, the underage girl, wearing a T-shirt that says "You can't touch this," and they make a joke about it. And that was like super, like that was cringy to me for
what we know now.
Life imitating art, imitating life. Yeah.
If you want to know what we're talking about, Google it. Because we're
not going to get into it, but yeah, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So and yeah, when you read it now and you know like what happens in the future, it's just like
I mean, I suppose in fairness, this was the time for MC Hammer.
oh, and that's how I took it. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I was like, ugh.
Yeah, it's a little bit jarring, definitely. Definitely.
But I mean, some of the characters that are in this book that don't, like Booster Gold is in here, but I mean, you see him in there, and you see the back of his head,
Yep.
no dialogue. General Glory,
Yep.
like, is that Maxima too?
That's it, Maxima there. Yep. Cool.
Maxima, it's
Some of the
yeah,
Justice Societies there. Look, there's one of the Green Lanterns. There's
right.
Doctor
And then when they
Midnight.
had a full page of the villains, where they had the I can't even remember the names of the characters or the names of the villain groups. But there's like no reason for them to be in this issue other than to create a
Yeah.
crowd scene. And
Come on, nobody knows Eurocrime or the Global Guardians.
The
no, who are
Royal
these
Flush
guys?
Gang. The
Yeah,
Royal Flush
the
Gang.
Royal Flush Gang. That's who I meant.
Yeah.
And then is that the Injustice League?
Yep.
And then the Red Guardians. So the Red Guardians? Well, they are fighting in
The
Russia.
Rocket
Red
Reds. The
Guardians,
Rocket.
that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So,
this was.
why does Sonar look like he's 50 feet tall in that panel?
I have no idea, but I will say this: I did pick this book because of the stinker of it, not because of anything else. So apologies for this.
You made
But
us read.
Yeah, well, did you read it or did you look at the pictures?
I know. I absolutely read it.
Really? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry about that.
I have this issue, and I read Justice League Europe the entire run, I think. But reading, like, I haven't reread it in 30 years, so thank you for making me reread it.
Oh, you're welcome.
So
I think. 13th. What's your take on this?
You know this, and you guys know this well. I hate mind control stories with a passion. I can't stand it. You have Sonar here, an old villain of Green Lantern, basically taking control over Russia somehow and using his sound power to brainwash everyone. How that works, I have no idea, but in this issue it does. The only things I liked about this were Sue Dibney, the dress, which was awesome, faking that she's under Sonar's control. I thought that was cool to see that uh, the Ralph and Sue Dibney relationship be strained a little bit. We can fast forward in the future. We all know about the identity crisis, what happened there.
Yeah.
This is a power DC couple. And here's an example of that in this issue. That's a positive takeaway here. The Power Girl Hal Jordan thing, it it never made any sense, mind control or otherwise. But in the middle of a battle with Sonar, he puts up a green force field, and then they start making out underneath while Sonar's pounding him from behind. Wait, that doesn't
that
sound right.
that bottom panel looked like it was more than a makeout.
Yeah,
Right.
this one. So
All of a sudden, this was a thing with them where she felt, differently. And throughout the whole run, Power Girl is this whole I'll let you know what's happening. If I like you, we're cool. If not, I'll punch you. She was very, very straightforward, and very, very seldom do you see a different side of her in the run. This is one of those moments. Now you can say brainwash or whatever, but you know, I couldn't stop laughing. They're making out, they're underneath the shield, and Sonar is trying to pound them from behind, and then he brings in help later on with Dr. Light. So, um, this is a who's who of very like D-list characters in the Global Guardians. I knew them right away when I saw it. The same thing even for Eurocrime, because Eurocrime had made their appearances in this run as well. Um, some of the more obscure characters too. What is Agent Liberty in this thing too?
I think
I just saw him on the other page. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool to see. But it's just, again, it's just a who's who, and it's just a complete mess. Everybody's together and everybody's against each other here. That's what I don't like about these mind control stories. You don't know who's who and doing what, why they're doing it. Then when they wake up, oops, I'm sorry, and then they're at it again. You know, whatever. You get a lot of pages of this, and again, just Sonar. The costume design here too, I am not cool with. Um, but what are you gonna do? Aquaman obviously has sensitivity issues. You get new members of the Justice League Europe team, and some people leave. But this is almost like a new beginning for Justice League Europe, where they're going to become Justice League International, and they take on new members. I did not appreciate the battle with Tasmanian Devil and Wonder Woman. Yeah, Taz is strong, but man, like you're taking on Wonder Woman, who wasn't even mind controlled.
Yeah.
So there's some inconsistencies here. Even the Guy Gardner personality, you get very little of that, but then you get to see him use the yellow ring, so there could be some confusion for people with that. Clue Master somehow found his way in here. Copperhead. It's a lot to take in if you don't know who these characters are.
Mm.
But I'm with Johnny on this with the Tainted Love, with Power
Oh.
Girl. But then she gets more excited for her cat, whose name is, who remembers the cat's name?
Oh.
Jeopardy question. Ready? Stinky the cat.
Stinky.
Really?
Yep. That was the part where I was like, oh, Stinky's in here.
I almost said Chewie, but that's Captain Marvel's cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But, I like the last page of the book. You get the little splash panel, and there's your preview
Cool.
for Justice League International. So hopefully at this point, if you were following the run, like it seems like most of us were, month by month, you're like, okay, finally a shakeup. You get to see everything these guys dealt with up to this point. Now this is a new starting point. It's a fresh start for these guys. And tune in.
Tune in. There you go. So you know what? That went better than I expected. I thought everyone would absolutely hate that book. Never mind.
Stinky the cat. How can you hate Stinky the cat? I
I
mean,
must try harder.
that's why the value of the book has any value is because of Stinky the cat.
Because of Stinky the cat.
Yep, a cameo here.
All right. There you go. 3 more books for this year's Tainted Love.
Oh.
There we go. Excellent. So you'll have to join us again next year to see what Dr. Doom books 13 can find for us about that. That'd be cool.
I already have one in mind.
Oh, good God. Of course you do. Just one? I thought you'd have 13 at least. Never mind.
Always have 13 plan Bs.
So that's it for the end of this show. Don't forget to check out UCPN for all your favorite podcasts, including Bud.
The No Prize Podcast, all about Marvel Comics, Disney Plus, and the MCU.
There you go. Of course, the Definitive Crusade for everything that's Marvel. Sorry, for everything that's DC. I should say. How do I get everything? That's everything DC. And pretty much that's it because we don't get. That's all we get from DC over here. That's all. Sorry, no HBO for me. And of course, don't forget to check out Comic Crusaders for all the latest reviews of indie books, DC books, and Marvel books, as well as a whole host of other stuff, music, TV shows, movies, the whole pop culture gauntlet. There you go. Cool. So, Professor, thanks very much for joining us. Appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Johnny. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And 13, thank you for spending the time. Really enjoyed your book.
Of course, thank you. Muy bien.
Muy bien. So this is Johnny Machine Hughes. As always, adios.